Welcome to season 4 of the Founders Only podcast, where we uncover the pivotal trials and triumphs and the stories of great founders delivering actionable advice on how to be the leader of the pack. Welcome back, everyone, to the Founders Only podcast. Today, I am so excited to welcome my guest today, Adam Robinson. Adam is the founder and CEO of retention.com and RB2B. Adam bootstrapped retention.com to 22 million ARR in just 4 years by helping e-commerce stores identify their anonymous website visitors and send them triggered emails. He launched RB2B in March of 2024 to help SaaS companies identify anonymous website visitors and see their LinkedIn profiles in Slack for free. Adam lives in Austin, Texas with his wife, Helen, and his daughter, Emma. Welcome, Adam.
Hi. What's up? We got founders only on this podcast.
Yes. So we're going to start with, can you share your journey to becoming the founder of retention.com and RB2B?
So at the end of high school, my dad was like, you got to get out of the house and get a job. And instead of going and working in a restaurant or something, I started a basketball camp business. And it was so awesome. So like I had like a camp, a camp that you would think about a camp, kids coming for a week or whatever. And I also was like I had these groups of kids that I would just go train, right? And really it's just like they were like playing basketball with this guy who was going to go and play in college and thought it was the coolest thing ever because I was so big and skilled and everything. And you know, I just couldn't believe it. It was like my friends were making $8 an hour working at like whatever, the sporting goods store, like the restaurant. And like I had parents paying me like I'd have 4 kids. Their parents paid me $25 each. And I'd just be sitting there like feeding them balls, you know? And so I worked like 3 or 4 hours a day and make like 5 times the amount of money my friends were like doing whatever they were doing. So and I had a sense that the world worked that way just because I looked around and some people clearly were just like killing it. And some of them were killing it in chill. Some of them were killing it in intense. And then, you know, some people seem to just not have it that way. So that planted the seed. I finished college. Finishing college, like the hardest part, I think, is when you just have no idea what you want to do. And I certainly was in that camp. How are you supposed to know what you want to do when you're 18 years old? That's crazy, right? And a lot, or I guess you're 21 when you graduate college. A lot of, at the time, you know, I think a lot of people think like, oh, I just am going to get the best job that I can to like, you know, make a lot of money. That's certainly how I thought. I think it's maybe a little different now, but that was what I thought then. And people, if you could, you sort of got a job at an investment bank or a consulting firm. Those were like the 2 very sought after jobs.
Yes.
The consulting firm pitch was, if you want to be an entrepreneur, we'll teach you how. That's basically their whole pitch. And I don't know if I agree with that pitch, like sort of being an entrepreneur and knowing what they do to some extent, but that's the pitch. I didn't get a job with any of them, but I was able to like get a job at this investment bank called Lehman Brothers. And then I sort of made my way into becoming a credit default swap trader, which they made this movie, The Big Short, about, which really captures that world well, actually, that I lived in for 10 years. And the real entrepreneurial moment. So what planted another seed was I show up in New York. I'm living with my high school friend who's got a job at Goldman Sachs in finance, doing something very similar to me. And these 2 guys he went to college with, we're just going to take a yo and try to build a website. And the website they were building is called Vimeo.
Stop.
Right? Yeah. So I like literally like I have this like vivid memory of walking in this tiny little room in this apartment we were in. And this guy, Zach, was in Dreamweaver, which if you're an old dog like me, that was like what people used to build websites in.
HTML, yep.
And he was making this baby blue homepage And like they had this idea to like share videos on the internet or whatever. So I, as my career went great in my 20s, like this Wall Street thing was just, it was like really a right place, right time. I mean, if you're doing something that they then make a movie out of, like you probably were in the right place.
Mhm.
And then, but something the whole time I was attached to these guys because I remained friends with them. And I didn't even really have the vocabulary to articulate why I felt they were getting more out of what they were doing than me and getting more out of their life in general, but I just felt it. And I know now it's because I think that most people, certainly not all, but most people find it actually very rewarding to build things and to like
Create.
watch things grow that you were applying psychic energy to, right?
Yes.
Like in CDS trading and credit default swap trading is not that. Like
Yeah.
to some extent you build relationships and you build your career or whatever, but the goal is during any calendar year to extract as much money out of the system for yourself. And that's the game you're playing, and it starts over at zero every single year. Um, so yeah, I now know that this game that I'm playing now is much more the game for me than the game that I was playing in my 20s. But that game gave me, when I came to the end of my trading career, I had saved a bunch of money because everybody doing what I did really well. And I didn't have a family. I was single. There's only so much money you can spend if you literally work constantly, and
Yep.
you're getting paid a lot. Like you just can't spend it. So um, I I had this moment where I had a really good year, then a really bad year. And I was like, I actually got fired. I changed jobs and then got fired from that job like 9 weeks in. And then I was like, okay, now I'm in this weird position where if I take a job, it's going to be really inferior to the job I used to have.
Hmm.
I'm very interested in going into tech. I'm single, my expenses are low, like I don't have kids. Now is the time. I'm going to spend all this money I made trying to figure that out. If I run out of dough, I'll go get a job doing this in 5 years or whatever, however long it takes. And that was like the start of like this incredibly painful journey to become, to like, there is no similarity between Wall Street, what I was doing, Wall Street trading, and this job I have now. I talked to some people who are like, oh yeah, I did a total flip flop. I was working at Google. Now I have a startup. It's like, Google's kind of a startup environment. Like, even though it's
Yeah.
one of the biggest companies in the world, it's like, and they're like, but the thing that I learned was like, I learned how to manage people, how to hire teams, how to this. It's like, I didn't learn any of that. Like, my job at Lehman Brothers, literally, like, I showed up, there was no training. They're like, answer the phones and make sure the trades are booked accurately. And then when people would go on vacation, they would like put you in their book and say, if you lose $1, you're dead. Right. Like, so you just,
Mm.
and then this girl got pregnant and she left, and they're like, you get to trade her book until she's back. And she never came back. And that was it. And like, I talked to my boss one time a year. It was during the bonus conversation. And I didn't learn anything that was relevant besides like kind of how to talk. I like this phrase, besides how to talk like an adult, right? Like, I learned how to speak very cohesively and articulately, and like kind of explain the value of trades. And I really, living through the financial crisis as a trader, I can really identify when, like, you want to buy, you want to be greedy when others are fearful, fearful when others are greedy. Like the crypto thing was very obvious to me that that was like a mania, and I'm an idiot. I was still involved in
Your
it, but
phase out.
like
Yeah.
it was so obvious to me what was happening. And like it's also like during like that first COVID, like when it just melted down, it was like, now you're supposed to be buying everything. I mean, but so those are the two skills. It
You
takes
don't think
forever.
you don't think you picked up sales or even like a little bit of discovery? No?
I think I learned much more about sales from having to build the sales machine that got my first startup to where it was. I, I think there's some intuitive sort of like, it's a different kind of sales. And I could have really benefited from some sales coaching, which like really emphasized some of the like strategies of sales when I was a
Mm,
trader. Just somebody listening to all my conversation being like, you should just shut your mouth
and let
and
them
wait
talk.
for them to say something,
Yeah.
right? Like rather than be like, oh, will you do this price? How about this price? How about this price? Like
Right.
give them a price, use silence to your advantage, wait for them to come back. So there's just none of that. It's like, so like I learned what repetition and trial and error will teach you. But I think I learned a lot more once I was building my own machine and I was like, what are the mechanics of sales? What are the mechanics of cold calling? Like, what do
Right.
like
Right.
how does this work? Right? Like
Right.
when someone is on the phone and they've never heard of you, like what are you supposed to say to me about it?
Exactly. Like
Right?
that's, I
Like
guess, the big difference, right? Too, is you had a recognizable brand that you were working
massively.
for.
I
Yes.
was inside of
That,
this machine.
yeah.
Strangely, like I was able to make a lot of money doing it. I formed some good relationships, but like it never felt real to me. It's a weird thing to say. It never felt like I was actually creating this value
Right.
because I was just a part. Like I sat down
You are a representative.
and the flow came through me, and like regardless of who sat there, the flow would go through them. So it's like, yeah, you try to be smart, you try to make some bets, you get paid well if you make great bets, you get paid zero if you make bad bets. But like, still, it was kind of easy come, easy go. You know what I mean? It was a strange thing, and then yeah, in the first startup that I had, I was able to get it to 3 million ARR through this lead gen kind of data mining strategy. Basically, we built this web spider before built with the web spider was available.
Uh-huh.
So we were the only people calling these customers of this other company. And it worked great because nobody else was calling them. But then we ran out of leads and I couldn't make it grow because the product wasn't good enough. It was only good enough for that channel. Right. And that really makes you, if it's your first startup,
Mm-hmm.
it really makes you question your entrepreneurial capability, right? You're like, am I good or not, or am I
Right.
just a guy who could
Lucky.
only? Am I a one trick pony, right?
Exactly.
And it wasn't until my second startup that did not it like used Facebook ads, the initial thing, Facebook ads and cold email, which is like I consider them channels that everybody might use, and you know, like a year or two in, I was like, I feel validated as an entrepreneur because it was almost like I was cheating before because of this thing that I figured out that no one else knew, right? And the second one felt very real because it's like, oh, I can create a product and market it that the world wants and it can be profitable and survive on its own and whatever else. But that was like from the day that the first startup was conceived to like when I felt that, it was like 6 years,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
like now I know, now I'm like, I just feel like, if I reflect on how I thought about things a year, 10 years ago or whatever, like I'm a weapon compared to that. Like
Oh
I'm
yeah.
like LeBron James compared to how I was thinking about stuff. If
Yeah.
you showed me right now with what I'm doing with RB2B, this crazy go-to-market strategy that I have, and you were like Adam of 10 years ago, opine on that. I'd be like, he's an idiot. He's an egomaniac that wants to be famous. This free thing's never going to work. He's stupid. He should be doing enterprise deals because he could, like whatever. Right. And I just I see it already working. You know what I mean? It's like we launched this thing 10 weeks ago. I don't even have the feature set that we're going to charge for yet. And we're already at 500,000 ARR. What people are like people could steal from us what they're buying. And it's like we haven't even gotten started yet. And this has already moved faster than this last thing I had by orders of magnitude. It's just it's a wild evolution,
So
to
what
like watch
version is RB2B right now? Is this like
it's
version one?
yeah, I launched it. I launched on March 1st and it works. It basically the product that got launched on March 1st was like um push leads from your website who don't fill out a form into Slack, right?
Right.
That was kind of it. What we believe that we can charge for we're only going to try to charge for like 10% of people, right? So below a certain volume, it will be free forever. Most people will not pay. 90% of the world, it will never even occur to them that this is something worth paying for, which I love because that's a viral marketing.
Right.
You know? And then of the 10%, it's like, do you know how to book a demo or not? If not, you're in the free camp because it's just a toy. It's not going to help you. It's not going to be worth paying for. But it's very interesting for free to look at who's on your site, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just when you start talking about like, oh, am I going to pay $300 to see who's on my site? Like, probably not, you know.
Yeah.
But free
Yeah.
for sure, and for free, you're like, wow, this is great. I'll tell my friend. So if you can book a demo, we're basically going to be like, okay, get on the phone with me because I can tell you how to make this work, but you're probably not going to do it the right way. So this is the last thing we're going to like install in this motion. So the combination of features are HubSpot integration, which we just launched, and ICP filtering, ideal customer profile filtering, which is coming in like a week or two. And then an actual credit system. My original plan was to do unlimited and charge for the integrations, but that didn't really work because people can parse the Slack block with Zapier and push the contact wherever they want. So between the credits, the filter, and the HubSpot integration, we've had 6,800 people sign up or something like that. I think
Yeah.
we could have like, 250 customers out of those paying us like a few $100 with this like two-touch sales motion. So it's like, make sure they're doing the right thing, which is basically whatever they're doing to book a demo. Make sure
Right.
they're not writing people saying, hey, I saw you on my website, because that will freak people out and not be good.
Right.
And then make sure they just follow up. And then when they book a demo, go in and make them like it's like, oh, it's $300 a month, or it's like, $1,500 for the year. Like, what do you want to do? Something crazy like that.
Are you going to gamify that at all?
I suppose we could. We just like haven't gotten that far yet. I mean, I love the idea of, so like a thing that I think we should do gamification for is like, so in these free models, the thing that works the best, and this is just, I haven't done one before just from doing research, is like someone shows up at your doorstep, and even if you know they're never going to pay you, they are some type of currency for you. So
Mm-hmm.
they're either going to leave you a review or post on Twitter about you, or put like, and based upon things you learned about them coming in, which of these funnels they go in.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there's like a great gamification opportunity with the free users. But the paid users, I think the most straightforward thing is just like get a rep of ours to connect with whoever the rep is that's like following up with these people, and just like stay on top of them until they book a demo and they make them an offer.
So you're going to do like maybe like paid onboarding for paid customers?
We're going
Or
to
how will
basically,
yours?
this is the plan, right? And I was so wrong with what the pricing model was that I thought it was going to be, that I don't know if this is where it's going to end. I would say it probably won't end. The hypothesis is, if someone knows how to already book a demo, we say basically like, get on a free, 15-minute call with an implementation specialist who's actually a salesperson. And it's like, yo, make sure you're connecting we'll set your ICP filter up. We'll set your hot pages leads up. We'll make sure the CRMs connect appropriately so you can
Mm-hmm.
see who's hitting your site and in deal stage. And then when these people come in, connect with them, put them in whatever email sequence you're using, and just like keep following up. Like, but don't sort of send bulk emails to them.
Mm-hmm.
Don't contact people who aren't in your ICP. Like, don't, tell them that, just make sure they're not doing stuff that would obviously make it not work.
Right. Right.
And then kind of like have some automated communication that stays in touch with them until they come back and say, I booked a demo. And then, it's a 5-minute conversation. It's like, okay, cool. Well, you're going to buy this thing if you booked a demo, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then it's yes or no. So that's the hypothesis. We're trying to like build the sales org in Serbia so it can like scale really cost efficiently. I'm doing a lot of experimental stuff with this one. So that's where I think it's at right now. I'm very humble in I acknowledge the fact that basically all of the plans that I have are very wrong. It's like
Mm-hmm.
one of these like Napoleon or something. It's like, well, you know, you need to like have a battle plan, even though you basically never use it. You know, but
Napoleon said that.
there's some like
Maybe it was Sun Tzu or something.
yeah, so it's something like it's like there's some quote about that. It's like or you know, there's also the Mike Tyson one that's like uh everybody has a plan until they get punched in the mouth.
Exactly.
That's
Yes.
a better one.
I can relate to that one.
Yeah.
So really one more question and then we'll move on. For retention, when exactly did you start retention and how long did it take you to hit 1 million ARR?
So that company, we launched it on November 9th, 2014. And I can't remember it was around 6 months.
Okay.
Wait, 1 million MRR or ARR?
No, ARR.
Yeah, it was around 6 months to get to 1 million ARR.
Okay. Okay. And
Um, but
gotcha.
we were actually, but the difference between that one and this one is we were selling the full value proposition on day one.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So like this is so interesting to me because like I said before, like we don't have what we plan to sell yet, and we don't have the people in place that we plan to actually use for this sales assisted PLG, and it's still moving faster than the last one.
And we already
You know,
know, which I'm sure we're going to touch on, we already know that a big part of that is because of the personal brand that you built.
well, it's all of. I mean, it's just
Yeah,
all of it.
that's
There's
that's
no. I could, and with the stroke of luck that I have had with this, my best friend's sixth sense to like, you know, basically take me from being like a guy who was kind of in the ecosystem to like 100% awareness of me and what I do to their customer base and
crazy.
ecosystem, which is just perfect for us, right? It's
Yeah.
like that really, really was a turning point, you know.
Yes. Yes. So tell me who Adam was before he became an entrepreneur. Where are you
Uh,
from? What are
I
your
grew up in
parents
Houston, Texas.
do? Okay.
I had a pretty boring, you know, I feel like a lot of very successful people had rough childhoods. Not that it wasn't like full of love or whatever, and sometimes it wasn't, but like there was just a lot of struggle in their life. And I kind of didn't have that. I mean, my brother was like an elite swimmer. I really tried to become a very good basketball player. I walked on in college, so like I had moderate success at that. But I worked my ass off, and it was very clear to me that, you know, I had the ability to work very hard at things and I would excel at them. You know, it's just kind of like I really appreciated just watching my brother and how hard he had to train for what he did, and you know, seeing the result of really focusing on basketball and what it did for me and how skilled I got. So yeah, I kind of like always had this idea that, you know, if I hustled, it would be better than if I did not. You
Were you like
know,
a jock or
in high school and college, yeah. I
more
mean,
of a jock than a nerd? Because
yeah,
I talk to a lot of nerds on this
yeah,
podcast.
yeah,
Or self-identified. I was a nerd when
yeah.
I was growing up. Yeah.
I became a nerd later. I really didn't
Yeah.
appreciate learning until this. Like, I'm like, how do I become how do I become a tech entrepreneur? I started reading books, talking to people, whatever. And then I really in building these machines that we build and building these machines of people that build machines, um, I really started to appreciate the power of understanding things deeply, you know,
Hmm.
just being an avid learner and how healthy that was. So I've definitely like now for me, like exercise is very much a thing that I only do to make my day feel better, to just to prepare myself in my brain and like to feel good during the day and to be more on it. Like it's not really, you know, I don't really have fun doing it. At least the way I
Hmm.
go about doing it. I like being active, but like you know, it's kind of reversed, I guess. It's like I'm not really a jock anymore.
One of the things I like to do with my team is talk about how performance management is like coaching on a basketball team. And I wonder if you feel that, having the experience that you did playing in a basketball team and possibly having some good coaching, if you carried any of that on as an entrepreneur and building your team.
So I never really had a great basketball coach.
Okay.
There are people who had great basketball coaches and they love these great basketball coaches, but I think that you can experience what a great coach is like by reading memoirs that great coaches write. So like Phil Jackson's probably known as one of the greatest basketball coaches of all time. He coached Jordan, he coached Kobe, got
Yep.
11 rings, got a book called 11 Rings. When you read that book, I think you really understand why his philosophy about coaching and what he believed to be the power that he had that allowed those teams to do as well as they did. And look, every situation is a combination of a million different variables. Like the horse was at the right place at the right time too. But like similar to my situation now, like there's a lot working for me that like it just happened to all fall in line at once. And I'm so grateful for all of this. But like it's kind of right here, right now. Like I could a year and a half ago, if you would have told me that like I'd be on this podcast with you talking about what I'm talking about right now, and like people couldn't say the word 6 cents without saying Adam Robinson, I'd be like, how would I get there from here? Like
Yeah.
I couldn't even map it out for you, you know?
Yeah.
So, but like, there's so many different parts of it. And there's so many different sides to it, and there's not a right and a wrong. I mean, there's some definite wrongs and there's some definite rights, but there's so many different styles and so many different ways to do it. But I think at the end of the day, it's like you need to get the best talent you can, and you somehow need to like attract these people to your organization who are this level of talent that you seek. And I don't know any other way than to lead by example, to inspire these people to commit to excellence and want to give as much of themselves as they can, in the direction that everyone else is pushing, right? Because that's the hard thing about organizations. It's like if you get 50 people, pushing on a boulder one way, it might move. Like if 25 of them are like pushing the other way, then it's not going to move, right?
Right.
So focus is hard for an individual. It's super hard for teams. So
With
yeah,
the
there's
with the growth that you've seen, the rapid growth that you've seen, I'm a big believer that when you are at the helm of a business that is scaling rapidly, you have no choice but to scale personally rapidly. Like the personal growth it's completely parallel. And so do you think that transformation has happened for you personally?
yeah, I mean, I made a docuseries about it.
Is that the one, what's it called? 10 years in the making?
It's called
That's
Billion
the
Dollar
doc.
Challenge. I made a podcast for the e-com space called 10 Years in the Making. If you go to my YouTube page, I don't really have many followers. It's just like a repository for video that I've made. But my handle is Retention Adam, at Retention
Yes.
Adam.
Uh-huh.
And if you hit that YouTube page, there's 18 10-minute episodes of basically, I was like, I was convinced and wrong, by the way, that 18 months ago that retention.com was like a unicorn twice over based on everything that I was seeing. I was like, we got to hone down on this ICP. It's massive TAM, and we're going to fucking get all of these people on. And it's just, they're never going to churn because the product's great. Kind of all of that was wrong. Yeah, but we still ended up growing 60% that year. But I wanted to document what it's like being me in the middle of all that. It's like we had 6 employees in October and we had, 60 in February. And like, how does your life change is all of that's happening,
Okay.
Um, so I, in the underlying theme is exactly what you said. It's like there's an enormous personal transformation that's happening
Yes.
as all of that's going on around you. There's also a transformation that happens when your expectations, which have been like rapidly sort of under reality, has been rapidly exceeding your expectations. And then as it goes crashing down the other
Yeah.
way, there's another transformation that happens, like a humility that comes back and like a sort of
Yes.
return to like I got all caught up in, going for this unicorn thing, VC style, like losing all my discipline, spending money everywhere. Everyone else does too. To like, it kind of semi blew up in my face and I got my religion back. Right. So, but like now going into this, I have that experience and I hope to God that I never fall into that trap again. But like I got it all on video. It was just amazing, with this great storyteller, like chronicling the whole thing.
Give me one big takeaway specifically that you shared in your docuseries that you would say got you through that humility, that going from, just
Yeah.
that transformation that happened when things kind of took a downward spiral. How
Yeah.
did you personally deal with that?
So I have this like inclination to be a self-funded bootstrapper who runs profitable businesses and to sacrifice growth for that. And I had just been running my last company with an insane lean, like it was crazy what I was doing. I had like a 12 million ARR and 6 people. No one's ever heard of anything like that. Um, so I didn't have to raise money to do this crazy VC like expansion. It was as if I raised $25 million the way that I had behaved, but we were making so much profit that the profit just left. The amazing thing about that situation was you kind of can't spend any more than your revenue if you don't have outside capital. So it just
Right.
stopped at some point. And, it went from being like, okay, Adam's this like, in my mind, it's like, okay, I'm this like scrappy small company bootstrapper guy to I'm going to be a unicorn founder and like worth hundreds of millions of dollars in a couple of years to going back to, well, this is way worse than I thought that it was at its peak. But since I leaned it out again. I mean, we still have 60 people, but like it's, that's not really a lot for, 20 something employees. It's this nice, slow growth, like really profitable machine. And I love the team. And if you're running businesses that way, like my biggest takeaway and what's going to make me be more conservative in the future is like, you're just playing in a position where you can't really lose. So like, and I kind of knew that the whole time, but like, as your expectations ratchet up to like, oh, I'm going to be a high flying thing, like whoever, it's still hurts regardless of the fact that,
Yeah.
the worst case, like, man, if I would have like raised a bunch of money before that, I would be in a horrible position right now because
Yeah.
I would have sold
Yeah.
them this dream that I would have like gotten a $50
Yep.
million and I'd be at 75 now. And now I'm at 22 and 22 is great unless you told someone 75 and they gave me
Right.
50 million bucks. Then it's a real
Right.
problem,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, that was ultimately, and like, it's not all business, right? Like I had a young daughter that I was, kind of was one during this whole time. And like, I got a great relationship with my wife, unless she hates me at the moment for whatever I've done. Um, I love living in Austin. We have good community here. So yeah, that all of that stuff also is kind of like, you know, I heard something said. I was at this like kind of like SaaS CEO group therapy session through this organization called Pavilion on Wednesday. And um, the topic was self-sabotage. And
Mm-hmm.
this guy, somebody had shared something, and this guy was like, you know, a good life is a life where you are constantly trading up the quality of your problems, right? So
Mm-hmm.
so a much higher class problem is I was going for a unicorn and it didn't work out, and I was left with a super profitable double digit ARR business and a team that I love and a new company that I'm starting. That's a much better problem than like, someone who grew up very poor, for instance, and they're like, I had hunger pangs when I was 6, right? Because like the problem is,
Right.
yeah.
Because
So
now it's a whole new
yeah,
perspective on that
yeah,
problem. It's not as big
totally.
as it bad it could be, as bad as it could be. You
Yeah,
mean?
it's like running businesses in the way that I do got me through it, but like also stepping back and being like, man, like even 5 years ago, before I started retention.com, I can't even explain to you. Like I thought I was a 3 million ARR SaaS guy, and that's all that I had in me because that's all I had proven to myself.
Right.
And I didn't know if I could grow a company bigger than that.
Yeah.
So I was single. I had not met Helen yet. I didn't even have a home. I was like being a digital nomad. I left New York, like whatever. If at that point you would have described the like 5 bullet points of like what I spend my time on now, like I was partying a lot, haven't drank in 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think I look younger than I do then and did then. Even if you would have just described this person, I would have been like, again, like I don't know how I could possibly get there, but I'll take it.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Like that is my dream, what you are describing. So like, but even when it's like you have it's our lives are very volatile emotional experiences, no matter what your circumstances are, you know, um, which is just so interesting.
so it sounds like the biggest takeaway is basically that you gained perspective on how to look at your problems in a different light and to be more grateful or I don't want to know more grateful, but how gratitude around the way that you've been running your businesses kind of saved you from a much bigger fall.
Yes,
So you
I think
looked
that's
at it
right.
through that perspective, like I
It's
can do that. I can grow further. I've already
yeah.
proven to myself that I can get through problems, that I can achieve more than I could even imagine. So everything's going to be fine. Is that kind of,
I think that is a great summary of like what gets you through something like that.
yeah.
But
Okay.
like probably the biggest lesson was like that whole thing was just like kind of FOMO driven. I was like,
Mm-hmm.
oh my God, like we have such low market penetration. Nobody knows about us yet. Like we need to be a first mover, like all this stuff. Like I now believe that was just incorrect thinking, as FOMO often is, right? And it led to these very impulsive and flippant decisions that
Yeah.
set bad examples, and it caused a lot of pain in a lot of people's lives because like we went too fast. We had to do a big downsize, and now we're back up again. But like it was just
And isn't that the
very
worst?
bad judgment and leadership, as
Yeah.
far as it would have been good leadership in some other situations at other companies and that other people were running. But like, that's not who I want to be. And that's not
Yeah.
how I want my people to behave.
Right.
And it's not how I've ever been, So like it was like, uh, also in this session, the guy was like, well, sometimes our ideals are different than our values expressed by how we spend our time and effort and money in the relationships we're in every day.
Mm. Ooh,
And
gee.
I agree with that, but
Yeah.
like, uh, I think that me being a bootstrapper wasn't an ideal. I think that this just was like a FOMO driven, impulsive, like, fury, a mania that I went into, and I got taught my lesson. It might have worked out if this zero interest rate policy stuff continued and like the mania just went on. It might have actually done what I thought it was going to do. But a combination of that and a lot of other stuff, just sort of, I ran into a wall.
I hear you. I've
Yeah.
had similar experience. What's your superpower, Adam?
Um, man, right now I think people might say LinkedIn. I think if you asked a bunch of people
Hey,
what it
I'll
was,
take
they
that.
might say LinkedIn. But I think it's like, I can just be very curious and put a lot of energy with towards something that I see very signs of great promise in, that is giving me very little immediate feedback, and just like stick with it in a rationally long period of time, with like a large amount of focus. So I think that the combination of that, all of those things, uh, kind of, and just like the compounding experience that you get sort of being in the game for a long time. I think those two things together are the reason that I can do what I can do now.
So how do now that now you've built several businesses. So how do you know you found product market fit?
Oh, it's a great question. So good. Um, so I think a very so like I think there's like different phases, right? Like there's a type of trying to assess product market fit that like is like, is this opportunity even worthy of pursuing, right? And I believe deeply in like observing people's facial expressions, because everyone, like the micro expressions, everyone, like everyone that you speak to about your stupid idea is going to tell you that they like it. You can't fake
Mm,
people's eyes lighting up. If
mm,
they're in your ICP, if they're
mm.
your ideal customer, and you can make an expression like you're making right now happen on their face by merely describing what you do, and they're saying things like, when is that going to be ready? Like,
Exactly. Sign me up for
how
beta.
can how can I
Yeah.
get that? Like
Yeah.
that is
I
it.
love that answer.
Yeah. So that is my bar for, this is worthy of building something. And by the way, like last year I spent probably like 60 or 90 days having conversations with people on something we didn't end up building, because it
Mm.
wasn't that, right?
But
Like that
given that
wasn't what was happening.
response.
Um, but this thing that I have now, RB2B, like from the second I showed the first person, so the first version of this, it was like meh, like I was not fully convinced. The first version was I was giving you a script and then I was sending you spreadsheets of people, right? That before you
Mm.
know it was, and people were not that excited about that.
Right.
But I was like, the LinkedIn megaphone is so good that even if this is it probably works and we'll figure something else out. The second I showed the first person that profile in Slack with that headshot, every one of them made that face. They're just like,
Mm.
oh my God. Like I've
Yeah.
never seen anything like this. Like, can you, those people aren't just, oh my God. So, um, that was it for me. And then farther, like, there are signs that you can see in your business about whether or not there's word of mouth that is happening. For us, we have a free product, so it's very easy to see. We get 500 people to sign up a week, and all I'm doing is posting on LinkedIn. People are telling other people about it. You know what I mean? Like, there's just no other way. We're not doing ads. We're not whatever. We're
Oh,
helping.
I've seen
Yeah,
people talking about it and
yeah, yeah,
Facebook,
exactly.
and so yeah.
So I think the proxy for product market fit is something along the lines of, is your early stage business growing on its own, even if you do nothing to push it, right? It's just expanding on all of the categories that you watch, right? And like we're watching like signups and like G2 reviews and like people who are basically the number of people who have received a contract in the last 7 days, like is that growing? And look at all these rates, and now that we have paying customers, monthly recurring revenue, is that growing? So like, is that kind of like experiencing growth at an exponential rate beyond what is probably linear marketing that you're doing at that stage. You know what I mean? Like you're doing like this much, and if the growth is going like this, then those are really good signs of product market fit. There's other things like, is money just like stacking up in your bank account? You know, does it feel like, are the problems that you have, like the problems that we have are like, shit, we put a demo form on our get a demo page because we want to catch enterprise customers, and like too many people are signing up for it. We don't know what to do, right? Like, are the problems that, or is it like, I have a salesperson and they don't have enough leads? You know,
Let me ask you about this last one you said. So you mentioned earlier that you, in a previous business, I'm sorry, I don't remember which one it was.
Yeah, the email marketing company, Worldly. Yep.
Yes, where you talked about how you had the marketing basically helped you accelerate growth really quickly. The marketing channel that you were using accelerated growth really quickly. How would you have known if you're experiencing rapid growth from marketing, from a unique marketing perspective? How do I explain this?
Yeah,
So
you're asking if you're doing some type of advertising, how do you know if there's word of mouth or not?
exactly.
So
If the marketing channel, but I want to clarify, the marketing channel itself is one that, or the way you're using the marketing channel is a little bit unique, because sometimes you can leverage a marketing channel in a unique way where it's it's compounding the growth.
mm-hmm,
You know what I mean? Like, for example, affiliate marketing.
mm-hmm.
If you're leveraging affiliate marketing, how are you gonna
Yeah,
map back that attribution or
yeah.
yeah.
I think you have to have, by the way, I think you have to have a product market fit with affiliate marketing to make it work.
Mm-hmm.
Like your product has to be good enough that the affiliate thinks it's worth their time and their list clout to actually push it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you are doing meaningful affiliate marketing, you probably already had product market fit, or you couldn't get these guys to waste their time with it, because
Hmm.
they're not going to waste their time with something where they don't see the money. That's my experience.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, but it's a good example. It's a good question. So let's just use like my get emails, which is now retention.com. 0 to 1 was a Facebook ad campaign. That was 0 to 1 million. And it was incredible. It created this unbelievable awareness. But when people signed up, like we just had like a very simple word you hear about us, right? Like Facebook, email, from a friend, other. We were getting a ton of from a friends, even
Mm-hmm.
though the ads were going out every, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and you know, if you have a self-serve sign up, you're just like getting signups when you're not running ads, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
that's a really good sign. Like if you like
Mm-hmm.
turn ads off for a day and like you're still getting shitloads of signups, you have word of mouth. You know,
Mm-hmm.
if you're
Mm-hmm.
getting a bunch of inbound demo requests that are not related to your outbound sales activity or marketing, you got word of mouth, you know. It,
Right. Right. Right.
it's strange because like when you don't have like my first company definitely didn't have product market fit. It was just this one channel that we were able to poach customers with that worked, and it had product market fit in that channel, but not in the real world.
Exactly.
And I would read about product market fit and I wanted it so badly. And then the second one had it pretty well. It was still kind of like a high churn situation, but it was pretty good. Like people heard about it and they wanted it. And when they had it, they told their friends about it. And then this one's just crazy. I mean,
Yes. So
it's like,
so I think this is a thing, channel market fit.
yeah,
That's a thing. Like, and you can totally get
100%. But that's like the go-to-market challenge now, I think. It's
mm-hmm.
like for
Yes.
what I am selling and what channels are available to me, given the changes that are happening in the world, how should I design this
Yes.
economic model, right? Like,
Yes.
because a pushback that I get on what I say, it's like I'm basically doing this because of the PTSD that I have from trying to grow a sales org last year and realizing that outbound is so much harder than it used to be because response rates are going down. And my belief is that they will continue to trend towards zero. So it's like,
Mm-hmm.
what's the future-proof model?
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking at the Kardashians. Like I'm looking at, Alex Hormozy. Like there's no question to me that
Influencers.
of the type of connection that they have to their audiences allows them to do literally anything that they want. If it's
Mm-hmm.
become a billionaire with a cosmetic line, then
Mm-hmm.
that is what that's allowing you to do. If it is, attract companies to, trust you, like investing in them and grow them, then that's what it will do. So, but it has to be a lot. Your audience has to be on the platform that you're creating for, which is like why for me it's so magical. And it really helps if you are the future version of who your audience wants to be.
Gold.
Yeah. And it really also helps if you're willing to share stuff that
Story.
sucks.
Yes.
Well,
Yes.
narrative, totally narrative, but like being vulnerable, like being authentic. I think we're in a world where the most authentic figures will rise to the top faster than they ever have, because of this AI like content thing that's going on. So I think that is future proof. Like, and that is how things will be sold in the future. And like, I'm trying to create, some of the best, leanest D2C companies, because like I know a lot of them because we sell to them. They scaled up super quick with tiny teams, basically like getting UGC from like mid-tier influencers, right? Like 10 to like 50,000
Yep.
TikTok people. Uh, and they can just create this steady stream through an army of marketers that costs them virtually nothing. So I'm like, how do I do that? Right. I haven't seen a B2B play that is that yet. So like we haven't nailed it yet. Trying to come up with like what that is. Like, can I have 100 people a week posting on LinkedIn about how they booked a demo with our B2B that I'm promoting with our ad spend, but it's other people, right? Um, I think we could maintain a tiny staff and have the marketing power of a billion
Of
dollar
army.
company,
Yes.
right, exactly, through that method, right? And the
Yes.
economic model is totally different. You have to prioritize different things. You have to price the product differently. Like everything has to be different
Yeah.
in order for that to work. But part of the pushback I get on my approach is like, well, what does an expensive software company do? And my answer is like, well, why is software expensive? I believe that it's expensive to support the sales and marketing teams.
Mm. Yeah.
Literally, like
Yep.
we have to charge X to like make US
Yep.
sales
Make
teams
a
work.
Yep.
Therefore, our ICP are these companies,
Right.
right? If if those tasks that these people are doing, literally, if it becomes so, like, by the way, I'm just talking about traditional sort of like the predictable revenue inside sales activities. That's what I'm very negative on. The thing that we have to do to get customers in the D2C world is we have to basically it's like an ABM motion that gets people to physical events, which then gets them in a sales funnel, right? So the ABM motion is like an AE or a partnership person finds someone who we're connected with in our network that is connected with this person and tries to invite them to a dinner or a game or like whatever. That
Mm-hmm.
will always work
Yep.
because, and that's outbound. But like what I don't think is going to work is, oh, here's my list from Apollo. I'm going to stick it into outreach. I'm just going to
Right.
like hit go
Blast
and like
email and cold
expect
email.
this like
Yeah.
people to respond to that. Like I just
Yep.
think that's over, right? Like,
It is.
and so it's like, okay, we could create that other model, which we do in D2C on the B2B side also. But it requires it's very expensive. We would have to price more for our product. Like we would have to go after different people because it's so targeted. But like the Kardashian model, I can sit in my, I've done 9 podcasts this week, right? Like I can just sit in my office and make content and go give keynotes every once in a while or whatever, do workshops, get on webinars or whatever, try to get in front of every single other person's audience also that's in this universe. Just have them all come to me with this crazy viral offer. They hear about it, they're like, well, what's that guy do? It's like they go check out the
Mm-hmm.
site, like, well, why wouldn't I do this? Right.
Right.
And then hopefully we can get money from 2 to 5% of them and it all works. That's the whole thing.
So then the affiliate and partnership channel strategy definitely still works. And
I think it will continue to, how would that stop? Yeah. It's like, that's not where. So like AI and automation tools cannot bring
Build those
people
relationships.
to games or dinner,
Right,
right?
right,
Like
right,
it just doesn't work like that.
right. So in terms of expanding the UGC model into B2B for your purposes, could you not use an affiliate strategy where, each influencer, each B2B influencer is getting a commission for every body that uses their specific link when
Yeah,
they share a video about RB2B?
that is part of it
Yeah,
for sure.
yeah.
It's part of it.
Okay. Okay.
Um, that is going to be the attempt. So there's like a moment of intense excitement when people see the leads streaming in. I think we need to offer them, like more credits and, the affiliate link with 20% off, give them the post to make,
Yeah.
maybe give them a gift card even. Like we need to give them a lot and we need to make it very simple for them to post.
Yep.
And that is maybe what we can do. There's a really interesting agency play here, which is kind of an affiliate channel in some ways, where lead gen agencies can use the product for free. If they get paid on performance, they can basically like make more money. If they get paid retainer, they can just give their customers a month for free and see if this business model works, and they can run it as an ongoing service,
Mm-hmm.
activating leads. And then if it is multiples of what they pay us, the customer pays us, they get a 20% rip. Then they can post their success stories on LinkedIn, which we'll put ad spend behind. They'll have an affiliate link in, and with our ad spend, it promotes their agency. So they'll
Right.
get more. So
Right.
like that's like a perfect incentive alignment that we're just
Yes.
like not quite there yet on, that I'm
Mm-hmm.
really constructive about. And there's a lot of those lead gen agencies too. It's like thousands of them.
Yes.
So yeah, there's yeah, that could be a really compelling one, because
Yes.
problem is like a free user, it's still all about us. It's like the free user is not really getting anything out of posting this other than
Right.
stuff we're giving them. Whereas like that other type of UGC with the agency, like they can get customers from that. And
Yeah.
like they probably don't have the budget I do to just spend on ads, right?
Right.
So
Right.
um I would imagine there would be a better kind of channel fit, as you call it,
Yep.
channel market fit with that.
Yeah. Okay. So, what is your perspective on freemium models in general for SaaS? So, you've now implemented this in RB2B. Why did you make this decision? Let's start there.
I am obsessed with MailChimp. I was competing in that space and it was impossible. It was the most beautifully executed thing I've ever seen in my life. And yeah, I had been waiting for the right opportunity to do it. I think that if you're VC or investor backed, it's scary because it is a slow model. Mine's going really fast just because this crazy awareness thing happened for me for a few reasons. Under normal scenario, it would like you could grow like this with sales-led growth, and this freemium thing would go like this.
Mm-hmm.
So like the risk that someone would pull the plug on you right before it starts accelerating rapidly is high. So like that's
Mm-hmm.
the scary part. If you're self-funded, you don't have to worry about that. I think certain products yield themselves a little bit better to it. Ours, the value proposition is so straightforward. The install is so straightforward. So having a near zero touch sales and support model for the 95% of people who we consider,
Freemium.
unlikely to pay
Yeah.
us,
Yeah.
is possible. The more complex your value proposition gets and the more complex your product gets, the more difficult that becomes to achieve. Like getting someone fully activated on a complex product without human beings and have them understanding what's going on is just hard. So like, it's kind of like the simpler the tool is, the more it can
Mm-hmm.
yield itself to an effective activation uh,
Mm-hmm.
through freemium. So, uh,
Yeah.
and
That
you
makes
have to have the right people that are improving the systems that allow it to be more, mostly almost all self-serve. So like, that's what I would be thinking about when I'm looking at my product, trying to figure out if it should be free or not. And by the way, the most disruptive free plays are in markets where there's not already a market leader that is free, right? So it's like
Exactly.
not really, it's gonna, like, that was my thing with the email marketing app that I had. I'm like, I'm devastated because MailChimp has a tool that everyone perceives as free. 95% of people don't even realize they'll ever pay for this. What are you, and their brand's amazing and their product's amazing. So what are you going to do? Are you going to be more free than MailChimp? Like you can't, like you can't, right?
Boy, you had a lot of meetings about that, huh?
Yeah. Yeah. No, it was devastating. Like I remember vividly Thanksgiving of 2016. I was like, oh, I did sales to get to this 3 million. It was done. It was like, well, maybe I need to do marketing now. What is that? So I'm digitalmarket.com, literally like, what is marketing? I'm watching Ryan Dice give this course, and he's holding up this, he's got this yellow card on the screen. You can Google it. It says statement of value card. And it's like, company X helps group of people Y
Right,
do Z.
right.
There was not a single, and he's like, if you cannot fill this card out, do not take another step. Like until you can write on this card something that makes sense, you don't have a business. You don't have anything worth marketing. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, if there's not a single reason, because we weren't cheaper, we weren't better, we didn't have more features, we didn't have, better, we had nothing, right? Like there wasn't a reason why, if any of our customers knew about MailChimp, that they would not be using MailChimp for free. It's devastating realization,
Yep,
you know?
yep.
So that began this incredibly long journey of like, what can I do that MailChimp is not doing, you know? And me saying 1,000 times, what are we going to do to be more free than MailChimp? It's like, we got to do something else.
I have
And
a completely random question now
yeah.
that is, well, related to what you just mentioned, but kind of. What do you do? What would you do if you are if you've created a product where there is a market leader? Let's throw out the free part. Okay. So let's say
Yeah.
there's a market leader, nobody's offering this for free, but that market leader is a behemoth, a unicorn.
Yeah.
Do you even dip your toe in that water? If it's you, Adam, are you going to dip your toe now that you know what you know? Are you going to dip your toe in that water to create a product that is differentiated in the market? Okay. That does have a feature set or value proposition that's a little bit different. Okay. But when people think of, when you tell people what your product does, they're like, oh, like X,
Yeah.
that's what they compare it to. So would you dip your toe in that water?
So the answer is yeah. And kind of to some extent, I am doing that, right? Like, so everybody knows about Clearbit and 6sense and, Lead Feeder, like these products that do company level website visitor ID. In fact, when we started talking about what we could do, everybody thought they already had it, you know, but I knew they didn't. So it was like,
Right.
now the challenge is
No.
like just articulating what
Right.
the key difference is. And it's this big key difference. It's like, yes, it's the exact same thing, but they stop at the company and we give you the person. And
Yeah.
then what's really throwing gasoline on the fire is that it's free and none of these other companies are in a position where they can make that offer.
None of the other companies offer this with the Slack
Yeah,
automatically.
yeah, no, yeah. So it's
But
just kind
that's
of like
also a big differentiator, actually. I
so
think.
I would say I'm attracted to established markets because there's demand. So
Mm-hmm.
it's like, the challenge to me, it's like, can I create something that is different in a way people will care about? And for some reason, the incumbents can't match the offer that I have. Not the economic offer. They just can't match the package for whatever reason. And
Yes.
there's a few reasons. Like mine right now, I think it's working so well because nobody can do free. There's several reasons why, but like new entrants can't do it because you have to have a fixed cost data asset. And they don't. It would cost them $1 million to put it together, and they don't have that. And they couldn't go raise it for this opportunity for these nuanced reasons. So they can't match a free offer. Incumbents can't match a free offer because it'd ruin their business. It would just immediately, they would take a bajillion% revenue hit and they couldn't do it. And there's this nuanced data privacy reason why the people doing the company level resolution won't do person level, which I do not care about because I'm not venture backed. I'm not trying to sell for $20 billion.
Right.
I don't need my company to look pristine. It can look gray area to investors. I don't care. It's my business. So this was like the perfect combination of
Yes.
something that credible companies will not copy once it starts working. And I get to accelerate it like crazy because it's free. The story that I will tell about MailChimp is Constant Contact was what you were describing. They were the industry leader. They went public in 2009.
Mm-hmm.
They went public in 2009. They had 100 million of revenue and MailChimp had 2 million.
Mm-hmm.
MailChimp went free that year
Mm-hmm.
because they were like, we have to do something radically different than Constant Contact. There were two other players called Vertical Response and Eye Contact that were doing the same thing as Constant Contact with way less resources. So MailChimp's like, that's not going to work. So they came up with this crazy free thing. 4 years later, they had 100 million ARR, one developer. Unbelievable. And
What?
Constant Contact ended up getting taken out for $1 billion. MailChimp sold Bootstrapped for 12. So there are a lot of other things that went on, but Constant Contact could not match the free offer.
Right.
They did not know that the enemy was inside the fortress until it was way too late. By that time, they were dead. So they just had to sell.
But see, the freemium model, that's blowing everything out of the water. I mean, you have some growth accelerators here going on with RB2B.
Yeah, it's like
so
all
if you weren't free,
together.
But if you weren't free, if you couldn't create a freemium model for RB2B, would you still move forward with it?
Yeah, because I think that there's those other reasons. It's very different than what exists, and the industry leaders are not going to copy it. So I would have just started off, I believe, because I hear it every day, that it's actually more valuable than those products. So I would have positioned more value at less cost and then raise price over time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
As it just became more, but we would, we've had 6,500 people sign up for it in 10 weeks. Like if we were charging similar prices to what these other companies are charging, we might have had 500 people sign up, maybe. I mean, no, we wouldn't have that many customers. 2 months in, we would have 100 paying customers, maybe, which we do right now, which is crazy, with no salespeople and like no anything. Yeah.
10 weeks.
But it would have been, no, we would have less paying customers than that. I don't know. Getting paying customers in the beginning of a journey is incredibly difficult. That's been my experience. So, yeah.
Okay, so we're gonna speed this up a little bit. So, give me 3 tips for a founder who wants to grow on LinkedIn. They understand the mechanics of what needs to be done. Okay, so they understand the model that you have leveraged to grow on LinkedIn, but they are trying to find their voice.
Yep.
Because I feel like I've been hearing around this new strategy. It's a combination of storytelling. It's a combination of being authentic. It's a combination of posting regularly. It's a combination of understanding the algorithm and commenting and the engagement. And there's all these things going on. But I feel like if you know all of that information, if you haven't figured out your unique value proposition, if you will, of what is going to be unique about your narrative, you're dead in the water. So it doesn't have to be 3 tips, but give your girl some advice. Tell me how you found your voice. How did you know what you were going to talk about? And how does that work out every day for you? How are you coming up with what what you're typing on the screen.
So for me, it was like kind of a surprise. For a year, I struggled with everything you're talking about. I knew it was a problem because I didn't know why I was writing what I was writing. And now I do. But for a year, I didn't. And the problems that I had with it were I'm trying to attract e-commerce store owners to this content, and I'm not one of them. So, like, what am I supposed to write about that they're interested in? And why wouldn't they listen to someone who is an e-commerce, store owner who's actually in the trenches like they are every day? How am I supposed to compete with that? I never found a resolution to that. My attempt was to just talk about broader business issues that they could relate to also, but that's just not as good a content, in my opinion. And all the stuff you said is kind of true. There's no way you're going to figure this out unless you just keep trying and keep posting very regularly. During that time where I was deeply conflicted about this content I was creating, what I wanted was like a Justin Welch style spreadsheet where I could just write my pillars out and then I could write my sub pillars and then I could fill it in and say, well, this type of story is going to go here. Here's this type of case study that's going to go here. When I was talking to Alec, my current LinkedIn coach, before I signed him up, he's like, that's not how this works. You figure out the pillars by posting. Right. And
what gets engagement, what gets likes.
Yeah. And my friend, Andy Muborn, and I now have when I'm writing a post, sometimes I get done like that one's going to be hot because like, I know what hot is, it's like the way that I am saying this stuff based upon all the conversations I've had the last couple of weeks, like, man, if this doesn't pop, like I'm going to be surprised. And then other times I'm like, I thought this was going to be a better post than it is. Like, I don't know. I'm just unenthusiastic about this. So my buddy Andy Muborn, who has been at the game longer than me, he's like, on LinkedIn, your intention is not to create an audience. Like what you are doing by posting is you're creating a library of greatest hits, which you get to reuse. And your library of greatest hits is what builds audience. So thinking about it that way, right? Like what was the greatest hit for me a year ago is very different than what a greatest hit for me is now. For me, the transformation was I was trying to attract e-commerce store owners and I started writing for B2B. And when I started articulating my own problems in a way that was just so resonant with this audience that lives on LinkedIn, right? These revenue leaders of SaaS companies, that's when it exploded. And as I observed different types of posts that I put out afterwards, I began to understand what posts will attract an audience of startup founders, what posts will attract an audience of salespeople, and what posts will attract an audience of marketers. How to write them, what a good hook means, like what a good close is, like all that stuff, But you said it before when you were asking the question, your perspective is everything, and how what you're saying relates to your perspective and the credibility that you have that gives you that perspective. My employee Pete could write exactly the same words as my posts and it would not land because Pete is not a 3-time founder who has a 22 million, is the CEO of a 20, you know what I mean? But Pete can write other stuff. I couldn't write a post about stuff Pete was struggling with and have it land because it wouldn't make any sense. Like I'm not dealing with like this guy who's not, defining my role well and like, improperly sets expectations and like, is sort of, manic depressive manager or whatever. I'm not saying I'm that, but like, the point is that, everyone is on a journey. Everyone has a unique perspective. What makes art, which is what this is, interesting is the perspective of the artist. And that is why ChatGPT will never replace what I am doing right now. It has no perspective.
Got it. Okay. So the authenticity is really authenticity. Yeah. It's not just finding some topics that you think resonate with your ICP and trying to put your authentic spin on it. You really have to go to like, what is my story and what can I authentically talk about, period.
Yeah, but by the way, like that's where you have to start. You got to start somewhere. It's like, well, what should I write about? It's like, I don't know, these three things. Let's like whatever. And like one might kind of do better than the other. You got to start
Yeah.
somewhere. I
Yeah.
also recommend like, you know, a really good ghostwriter will understand things about how to write on LinkedIn that you do not if you've never written on LinkedIn before. So, working with a ghostwriter for a few months is not a terrible idea.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we've talked about this ad nauseum today, I think, but it is the themed question of the season. So I'm going to ask, how do you approach building your personal brand while also growing your business? And this can be a short answer.
Yeah, I have a great team. You know what I mean? So I'm starting this startup, but uh it's not like when I started my first startup. Like I am not wearing a huge amount of hats, right? Like, and I'm enormously committed to this personal brand thing because of what I'm getting back from it. So, uh, yeah, I just have a really good team that is managing stuff, right? Like, it's like a lot of the sort of ancillary services of running a business, like get
Yeah.
done in the main company, and someone else runs that main company.
Yep.
My Mondays are like, kind of one-on-one internal one-on-ones. And then the whole rest of the week, it's like Tuesdays all about content. And then I'm trying to get on as much podcast as possible. And the rest of it fills up with random people in the ecosystem I need to be talking to. And then the week's over. I do it again.
Well, that was going to be my next question. What does your week and day look like? Okay. So, what is the biggest challenge you faced, period, as an entrepreneur?
Um, yeah, 0 to 1 of the first company is just the hardest. You just don't, there's so much working against you. I mean, just thinking about the position that I'm in with this new business, it's totally unfair. It's unlike anybody who would just be like, "Oh, I'm going to quit my job and start a business." Like I am so far beyond what is what's happening for you as a first-time entrepreneur in so many ways, right? Like the way that I see the world is conditioned by all of my prior experience, all of those failures, the lessons of, you know, what doesn't work, and then,
Mm-hmm.
glimmers of hope from the stuff that does. I have audience, I have resources, I have credibility, I have product prowess. I know what success looks like and I know what it doesn't look like. I know what we should waste our time on and I know what we shouldn't waste our time on, right? I have a killer developer, like just all of this stuff. Um, Almost all of which I did not have 12 years ago when I was like, I'm going to become a tech entrepreneur, right? So,
So, then the number one advice for an entrepreneur who is at that stage, first time, would be to either get an advisory board or get a mentor.
they can be helpful.
Yeah.
It's so hard. My number one advice actually is spend as little money as possible until you know you have product market fit, which people have a hard time doing because it's so emotional. It's so ego intertwined. It's very difficult when you spend your entire life on something. This is the case of my first startup. Reading that, not being able to fill out that statement of value card, right? It's like, what I'm giving my life to is not good. Like somebody like the product's not good enough. It's like, well, our G2 reviews are good. It's like, yeah, but it's not growing. Tech, if it's not growing, it's not good enough. Accepting the fact that you were like, if you accept the fact that you don't have product market fit, then you're accepting that you're not good. And that is a horrible thing to have to internalize.
Yes.
So, you know, and people think that if they're stuck, then raising money to hire more people is the answer. It's not. Getting a product that has word of mouth is, and other people, unfortunately, are not going to help you do that. It's the founder. It just
Absolutely.
is, I don't know
Yep.
how else to say it.
No, that's you hit the nail on the head.
Yeah.
What's one book, podcast, or resource that has profoundly impacted your perspective and mindset as a founder?
I think that whenever I'm asked this question, I like to recommend this book called The Four Steps to the Epiphany by Steve Blank. There's a book called The Lean Startup
Yeah.
that people have heard of. That guy was a student of Steve Blank's at this business school. And Four Steps to the Epiphany is basically that methodology, but it like reads kind of like more like a textbook. But it is the best startup book. And the idea is like most people build and then sell, but that's incredibly risky because your intuition is not an accurate reflection of market viability in most cases.
Hmm.
Um, so you need to basically have this product hypothesis that you're building, but also be building the buyers at the same time. Try to get them to pay you for it before it exists. That's the best. And if you can't get anyone interested in it, then you got to stop and build something else. And it just prevents it. It just gets you to stop a lot earlier, or like, change course or like whatever. So that's the book.
Okay, I will read that one. Where can people find you on social media? So where are you all on social media? Obviously, you're on LinkedIn, can look you up by
Yeah.
your name. Where else are you at?
LinkedIn's the main place. I did mention that YouTube channel, Retention Adam. That's where I got a lot of good video stuff that just people don't even watch because it's not on LinkedIn, and LinkedIn doesn't do that type of content well. I'm about to create this environment using this product called Audience Plus that'll be on our website. That's like a binge bin, I like to call it. Like it'll be all of my content, both written and video, that you can kind of like go in and just, spend a couple hours like listening to stuff. So, but mostly LinkedIn, some YouTube. You can check out rb2b.com. You can email me at adam@retention.com, all of that.
Well, thank you so much. What a great conversation. I am so excited to give this to the audience.
All right. Thanks for having me, Mia.
Yes. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. We'll see you next time.